Good evening, everyone. Welcome to New York Metro Weather's daily forecast discussion, and we're going to talk today about the upcoming pattern, and we've been talking about it a lot. I mean, we've had a couple, or more than a couple, of discussions about the long-range pattern, and what we're looking at today is trying to tackle the snow events, or the potential snow events that are upcoming, that are drawing a lot of attention, and we've seen various outlets reporting the potential for snow as early as the middle of next week. And what we want to look at is the pattern right now and why it's not supportive in these events coming up, why it's not yet supportive for snow and cold. So what you're looking at right now is the current pattern on the left side here. This is the pattern at 12 hours from the 12Z model run. So this is the pattern at 8 o'clock tonight. This is what we're looking at. A few key features here. Here's the high latitude blocking. This is a ridge over Scandinavia, and it's building down over Greenland. But this is where the blocking is at the higher latitudes. Here's a polar vortex. It's been displaced over to the west. There's another piece of it over here in the North Atlantic. But the polar vortex is here north of Alaska and into Russia. And there's a negative PNA on the west coast. Let's just do this real quick. Windows likes to change itself to a better theme for the video. Here's a negative PNA on the west coast with a trough. And then what do you get east of the trough when the blocking has not built in yet? A southeast ridge, above normal height anomalies over the east. On the top right here, we're looking at the departure from normal temperatures so far this December. Whoa, this is a warm December ongoing across all of the United States. The only area that's below normal is on the international border here in North Dakota. That's it. Everyone else has been above normal, whether it be slightly or moderately or a lot above normal here. This is 10 degrees above normal here. In Missouri and southern Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, this has been the pattern. This is the pattern. And we looked at the QBO analogs yesterday or 2 days ago when we did our discussion video, and it's almost to a T. The analogs not predicted, but if we looked at the analogs, we could have predicted the pattern very similar to this. The high latitude blockings on the other side of the pole. Here it is across Scandinavia, and it's beginning to build towards Greenland, and that's going to set off our pattern change, but it's not ready yet, and we're going to show you one of the reasons why is that the cold air is here. The cold air is here. It's not here where we need it to snow. So here's the 90-hour forecast, and we're looking at the GFS model where this is valid Monday morning. Next Monday coming up. Very active pattern here. There's shortwaves everywhere. A disturbance here coming in, a disturbance here across the international border, another disturbance over Canada, the trough with a disturbance here over the east coast. This is a weak shortwave. Let's look at the bottom right here, the precipitation temperature panel. It's warm. The 0 Celsius line at 850 millibars is over New Hampshire. So this is a light rain event. And you look here in the top right, it's weak and it's disorganized. There might be some snow on the front end over southern New England, but this is a disorganized event here at 90 hours, and this is an event that looked like it could produce snow for some areas a couple days ago. And you can see the surface low actually reforms underneath Long Island, but the air mass prior to the system is just terrible for snow. It's terrible, and that's going to be a problem even as we move forward. So here's the next event, one that we were speaking about a couple days ago, and you can see the models have changed, first of all, which is not surprising in this range, but also there's still no cold air to be found. Look how progressive the pattern is. Here's our storm of interest now digging in and trying to phase with a southern stream shortwave, if you believe the GFS, here over the mid-Atlantic. There's already a mid-level ridge building back in over the central U.S., and our second system is already on the west coast. These systems are flying through. The Pacific jet is so strong, and it's just pummeling these ridges here and throwing shortwaves and disturbances into it. Here's another low pressure system that we were talking about in relation to this one on the west coast, and you can see, look how limited the cold air is here with this system. On the coast near New York City, it's, you know, the 850 millibar temperatures are barely supportive of anything other than rain. It's barely supportive even here into New England, but this storm, the storm is 200 miles off the coast, and we're still barely supportive for snow. And look at the thin margin of error we have here with this cold air. I mean, it's decently cold. This is negative 10 Celsius here north of the Great Lakes, but it gets down to minus 6 Celsius here at the coldest point over the United States, and already a couple hundred miles to the west, over the plains, there's 10 degrees Celsius 850 temperatures building in as this ridge is starting to slide eastward with the progressive pattern. So a lot of times, you know, people tend to ignore this, and they see a storm off the coast, and they think, December, storm off the coast, there's some cold air around. You need, a good air mass and a good cold air source to get snow, especially on the coast in areas like New York City. Inland might be a different story. You might be able to see some snow across, in High Point, New Jersey, interior southeast New York, Connecticut, and southern New England. They're not out of the game yet, but as far as New York City and most of coastal New Jersey goes, this is not a pattern that supports snow, period. This is through 132 hours. This is through the middle of next week. This is not a pattern that supports accumulating snow. We'll look at the air mass here. These are the 2-meter temperature anomalies compared to average climatology. So, this is the air mass. This is the air mass that's in place Tuesday, right before this. This storm system is this is Tuesday night. This image is valid. This is the air mass that's in place. Folks, this is 9 degrees above normal temperatures if you believe the GFS model. And this is the ensemble mean. You look at every single ensemble mean here has temperatures. We'll go through them. Look, there's not one of them that has average December temperatures for this storm system. It's above normal. This air, where's the cold air? Cold air is up here, folks, with the polar vortex. This is where it is right now. And we look at the QBO analogs. This is where the cold air is. It's on the west coast with the negative PNA and the troughing here, and it's bottled up here. So yes, there will be shots of cold air in this type of pattern, but they're going to moderate by the time they get down here until we get some changes with the blocking and we can start moving things around. And the QBO analogs are such a good predictor of things like this, especially when there's such a strong correlation to what the December pattern actually is. The QBO analogs pointed to a pattern just like this through December. And then almost every single one of them has a major flip in January. So that's what we're going to be looking for going forward. Look at the European model. Same type of situation as the GFS. It does a little bit differently. But here's a storm well off the coast, and look at the warm air near the coast. And inland there's some light snow showers, but it's just not a supportive air mass. If these models are, we're going to need. And, a lot of people say, and we say it too, not to really trust the medium range models, but we're going to need some real changes in this forecast to get a pattern supportive of snow. And you see the European eventually, here at 156 hours, this is Wednesday night, blows up this storm as it heads into the Gulf of Maine. And there, up to the north, some cold air, a little bit more supportive for snow in New England, like we said earlier. So what goes on here over the next couple weeks is going to be a really big, it's going to really lay out the pattern, and it's going to really spell out what's going to happen here as we head into January. The forecast models at 192 hours, here's the GFS. We saw that, here's the pattern right now that we're looking at, if you look at the left side only, and here's the pattern in about 10 days' time. And you can see things have changed very dramatically. The Scandinavian ridge still there's a weak signal for it, but it's split off, and now you have a very high height anomaly over Greenland and into the Davis Strait. So this is a west-based NAO, and it's actually a little further southwest than the west-based NAO. So we have ridging. It's very warm now over central Canada, and that's the only reason why the southeast ridge is suppressed. So now, with this negative PNA and the polar vortex still north of Alaska, we have a negative PNA, so we're transporting cold air here with a ridge building towards the Aleutians. That's good. If you're looking for snow, that's a big feature, because now you get a deeper trough off the west coast, and you can get a spike of heights here in Boise, near a ridge axis near Boise. And what that does is it sends short waves over the top of that ridge that can dig and amplify to the south. So that'll help with cold air transport, but it's still, if you believe the GFS ensemble, is a very progressive pattern. But one thing that's very interesting is you see this height gradient and the temperature gradient is tightening. And here, if you look at the short waves on the GFS at 174 hours, they're still crashing into the west coast. A very active pattern is eventually going to bring down the cold air. The European agrees as well. As you can see, I'm on the European by a little after 200 hours. Got cut off here in the bottom a little bit, but look how cold it is. The cold has really effectively built in here. You can see it's warmer on the west coast now as we head towards the end of December. But now we have, this is cold stuff here over the northern United States. So these are the changes that are going to be occurring in the pattern with time. And the models, they tend to rush this a little bit, but I'm thinking here, part of my thinking is, given the active Pacific pattern, these short waves are going to eventually help to beat down this ridge, and you get this thermal gradient developing, and you can get some pretty cold air in here despite the polar vortex being so far north. And the blocking is very important. The blocking is very important because it keeps the southeast ridge suppressed. And it, because otherwise, if you have a negative PNA, you could very easily get a southeast ridge. And this blocking is a huge feature on the Atlantic side with the Pacific in a less than ideal state. Here's the day 10 means on the GFS and Euro, with the GFS on the right and the Euro on the left. You can see the Euro below normal height anomalies here. One thing that was interesting to bring up we talked the other day about the QBO analogs. You take a look at the European model, it's starting to look a lot like the January QBO composite. Lower heights over the North Atlantic, extending to the northern United States, a block over Greenland, slightly higher heights out west. Take a look. There it is, baby. Slightly higher heights out west, a ridge building towards the Aleutians. We still have this vortex here in the western Pacific, but the lower heights over the North Atlantic and the blocking, it's starting to match up with the January QBO analog composite maps. So if you believe the QBO composite, things are starting to get very interesting as we head to late December into January for winter weather lovers. Here's the European ensemble at 192 hours. Now this is an interesting threat, and I bring this up just because a lot of people are talking about the potential for snow, and I don't think it exists with any of these events into next week. But as we look towards the 21st, 22nd, 23rd of December, this is an event that gathers my interest a little bit. Although the air mass still not very supportive, behind the initial storm from the 18th and 19th, that storm will swing up here to the north and east and develop almost as a pseudo 50-50 low. So we have a little bit of a cold air source behind it, and then the European ensembles are liking this little ridge spike here on an axis near Boise, Idaho, driven by this big vortex in the eastern Pacific. And when you have the blocking to the north, you're getting almost a split flow underneath the block. And here's a big trough over the eastern United States, so a signal for maybe a low pressure system developing here, almost as a Miller B that will swing down and redevelop to the east. And you can see it on the hemispheric view as well. Big ridge now building towards the Aleutians on the European ensembles at 192 hours. That's a big signal for a pattern change. So this is what we're looking at as we head towards the long term. Like we said, we're going to kind of recap here a little bit. The air mass prior and during the storms coming up over here over the next week or two maybe, it's just not supportive of snow. It's just not supportive of snow on the East Coast. There's no cold air sources, no cold air supply. And this has a lot to do with the pattern still changing over the northern hemisphere. So unless you live in New England, I don't think there's any reason to be concerned about a high-impact winter weather event. But as we move forward, the analogs and now even the ensemble means, as we move towards the end of December into January, are still sending up many red flags that the pattern is changing. The pattern is flipping. Winter is not over by any stretch. Hasn't even begun in calendar winter. But meteorological winter began December 1st. And from all the signs that we can see at this point in the game, things are going to start to change in about 2 weeks' time. So keep a close eye on it. We'll keep you updated as we move forward, and have a great rest of your Thursday evening.